The more that business owners scale, the more that they end up onboarding clients manually, which means that they have no time to focus on the things that are actually going to grow their business, like marketing, acquiring new leads, retaining the clients that they already have, but instead they're just sat there like an assistant trying to onboard their clients manually. Instead, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can use GoHighLevel and you can connect it to different platforms like Stripe to automatically onboard all of your clients. You no longer have to chase them for forms. You no longer have to ask them to book calls. You no longer have to ask them to fill out questionnaires and forms. Instead, when they pay, the minute that they pay, everything happens automatically and you can stay in your area of genius, which is allowing clients to actually get results. So the first step is to use GoHighLevel. And in GoHighLevel, if we go down to payments, we can connect this to a payment integration software. So we can click Integrate Payment Gateway. Now inside the payment gateway, we can connect to Stripe or we can connect to PayPal. I would suggest just going down the Stripe route. If you click connect, you'll then see that you can click connect with Stripe and it will walk you through the steps on screen to connect your Stripe account. If you don't have a Stripe account, set it up, because it'll be the single most simplest thing that you could do right now to win yourself back time. If you're not using a payment processor to collect payments from clients and you're relying on clients constantly just bank transferring you funds and you having to tally up if they've sent it or not, this will just do all of the workload for you, collect payments automatically, have direct debit set up with your clients so you can just forget about it and you can get notified if payments fail. Plus, clients can then even get followed up automatically if their payments fail too, so you can be removed from that process. Once you connect your Stripe account, on the screen you'll have an option to toggle on Apple Pay and Google Pay. You want to make sure that you turn that on because what that will then mean is when clients or potential clients go to pay you money, if the objection is, well, I don't have my credit card, well, you can pay with Apple Pay. You can click it, you can Apple Pay it or Google Pay it, and then their onboarding triggers. So it means that you're essentially reducing the barriers that potential leads have because they can actually onboard themselves in no matter what environment they're in. If they've got a card, if they don't have a card, it's there. And what you'll also find with this is inside Stripe, if you go to your settings in Stripe and you set up Klarna, as long as on your payment links, which we'll set up in a second, you have the option to collect their address, their phone number and email. As long as Klarna is then set up in Stripe, Klarna will also be an option on the payment link as well. So it means that people can pay by typing in their card, people can pay with Apple or Google Pay, people can pay with Klarna, and there will also be the option for backs, so people can type in their account number, their sort code, and the payments can process that way too. So essentially, you've covered yourself in all directions because you've got all options essentially available to collect payment. What we can then do once connected, we can go into products and click products. Now what we're going to do is this is mirrored to your Stripe account. So any products we create here will appear in your Stripe account and the money will be processed in Stripe. Stripe handle all of that. If you already have your product set up in Stripe, click import as CSV and you can upload a CSV file. Or the other option, which will be simpler, is import from Stripe, and you'll then see that it will pull up once your Stripe's connected. This isn't, because this is a demo account. You'll have the option here to select a product, which will show all of your products from Stripe to import them. That will then mean that all of your products from Stripe will appear in here and then we can use those to trigger the onboarding. If you don't have any products in Stripe, simply go to create product and we can name our product. So we'll put the name of the product here. Then what we can do is we can go down and we can fill out if we have any taxes on the prices and things, but if you're, depends obviously which location you're in, but generally if you're an online business and you're sort of just selling virtual products, probably this isn't as applicable to you. We can scroll down, we can go to prices. Here we can essentially set up our prices. So we can choose, is this a one-time payment? So are they paying, for example, let's say £1,000, and we can change the currency if we want, once, and then it's done. Fine, we would click save. But what we can also do is we can choose a recurring payment and we could say it's going to recur £1,000 every single month. Great. But what we can do is we can go one step further and we might have a product where people pay upfront and then they go on a recurring payment afterwards. So what we could say is we could say there's a trial period, and this trial period could be 30 days to essentially cover the first month. Now that 30-day period could either be free and they get a 30-day free trial like that, and then it starts £1,000 a month after 30 days, or we could put a setup fee of £2,000. What that would then mean is £2,000 covers the trial, essentially the trial period. So what that means is the first 30 days is 2K, and then the £1,000 a month recurs from the second month. So that then allows you to, they don't need to see this, they wouldn't necessarily see this on the payment link, but on the back end, what it means is we can collect a setup fee to do the initial, whatever the upfront package might be, and then recurring afterwards. So for example, if you're, say, a business that sells 6 months of working with you for 3K, for example, you could then put, let's say 183 days for 3K, and then after that, let's say they then go onto a £500 a month subscription. This would then mean that that 3K covers the 6 months, and then they go to 500 a month after that. What we can also do though is we can go one step further, and if we remove the setup fee, we could then say that people are just going to pay us £500 every month for 6 months, and then it will stop. So that then allows us to essentially set up the products however we want, to ultimately mean that then we're in full control of what happens in Stripe, even down to what packages people fall onto after they pay us the upfront amounts. We can then click save up here, and then when we save this, we have our product that we've named. If we head back, that will appear in Stripe, and then it's set up here as well. What we can then do is we can go to payment links, we can create a link, and inside this, we can then select our product. We can then choose, do we want to collect the phone number? Do we want to collect their address? Do we want to allow coupon codes? What I would say with this one is, if you're not going to use Klarna and sort of financing options, don't worry about collecting addresses unless your accountant needs it, purely because it's just an extra thing on the payment that we're getting from someone. Whereas if we can reduce the number of things that we need them to submit, then it's going to be a little bit less friction. Cool. What we can then do is we can enable the redirection to a custom URL, and we can put the URL in here. So what that would then mean is when someone pays, they redirect to the next page. So if we save this, if we just turn this off, if we then save this, if we then go back, what we can do is we can use AI Studio. And in AI Studio, this is essentially allowing us to vibe code. So we can articulate what we want. So we could say, I want you to create me a get started page. This get started page will be used for clients who have just paid to redirect to once they have successfully paid. This needs to show all of the next steps, which are step 1, and then whatever step 1 is, step 2, step 3, step 4. Then what we would do is we would upload our color codes. So we'd put our color codes in, and then we'd attach our logo as well. What you'll then see once that's done, this won't give an amazing output because it's obviously not got all of the context, but once it has the context, it will then specifically be able to create us that get started page. So what we could do is we could go, step 1 is submit the onboarding form below. Step 2 is download our app, and we'll call it systemized to scale from the App Store. Step 3, book your onboarding call. Step 4, purchase, let's just say purchase these body weight scales to track your weight. Cool. And what we can then do is we can also add any examples here, and then what it will do is we can add links, the URL of competitors' pages that we like their branding, we like their positioning, we like their design, and it will actually use them as examples and mirror that. But if we say my colors are a bright orange color and black and white, we can press enter, and then what you'll ultimately see is this will start creating the page for us. So what it's doing is it's doing essentially web design for us through vibe coding, in the sense that we're telling it with text to create something for us, and then it's taking that text and turning that into code. Now, a big thing with this that helps this then perform even better is if you're using different AI tools like Claude, like ChatGPT, you asking Claude or ChatGPT to summarize all of its knowledge on you if you've used it already, and then it will give you a breakdown about you and about your business. You can then put that into here, so then on this page it then has even more context about you and your business. So you'll see here it's literally going through creating the page, which will take a couple minutes, and I'll drop back in when that's built. So you'll then see literally in the space of a couple minutes that it's built us our onboarding page. And on the onboarding page, we've then obviously got all of the next steps laid out, where we'll have our links to each of these that we would then link on that payment link. So imagine someone pays and they instantly get taken to this page, which makes it really clear on the next steps, so that then they're not left questioning what they need to do next. What we can do is we can then publish this, and when we publish this page, we can get essentially the ability to add a custom domain. If we click add a custom domain, it will give us the DNS settings that we add to our website domain. So we would then go to something like Squarespace or GoDaddy, or inside GoHighLevel, if you go back and you go to settings and then you go down to domains on the left hand side, you'll see under domains, you can then add a domain. You can purchase a domain, and when you purchase a domain, that can then be hosted in GoHighLevel. That then means that that page can be linked to your domain, just like www.systemizescale.com, instead of just a random domain. You would then get that link and you go back into payments, you go to payment links, we edit that link, we can then enable it to redirect and paste a link in there. We can choose the existing tab, not a new one, so it doesn't create confusion. It just updates the page and they go to that thank you page. It's then really clear on what their next steps are. What we can then do is we can change whatever we want the call to action to be. It would just leave it as pay in this case. We can take off the branding, and then we can link our terms and conditions here, so then they have to essentially agree to them in order to pay. We can then leave it as a live link. We can rename the link, and then we can ultimately save this. Turn that off for now. We can then save this. Now, once that's saved, what this then means is we can copy this link and we can then open this link up, which will allow people to pay us money. Now, what we just want to make sure is we can rebrand the link. So instead of it being a GoHighLevel link, just like ours, it's link.systemizescale.com. You would do that by coming into settings, going to business profile, and then down here, you will see you've got branded domain. You would then type in your branded domain, which might be link.yourdomain.com, just like ours, and you click add domain. It gives you the DNS settings, and those DNS settings, just like with the previous example, you add them onto the DNS settings on Squarespace or GoDaddy, and then your domain updates. That then means that when you copy this link, it's no longer link.systemizescale or GoHighLevel, it's then your own specific link. Now what we want to make sure is when someone pays on this link that it onboards them. So we just go into automation, and inside automation, we can then create a new workflow. So we create a workflow from scratch. Now in this workflow, we can add multiple different triggers to the workflow, but what we would want to do is we'd want to choose order, and we'd go order submitted. We would then add a filter, and we would choose if the order source is, and we would then choose payment link. We can then add another filter, and we can then choose if the global product is, and then we can choose the product that we created. We can rename this to the name of the product, so we know when people sign up for that, and save it. We can then, if we've got multiple different products that we use on payment links, we can then add multiple different orders, so when they're submitted, it triggers as well. What we then want to do is we can update the tags. So we add a tag to the contact, so we know that they've been tagged. Obviously, you would name it the name of the program that you're selling, and show and potentially writing converted or purchased, so you know that they've converted or purchased. Then you would update the opportunity boards. So I would suggest that you have inside your GoHighLevel account one board to manage cold leads, so your lead board, which is generally social media leads. One board to manage your warmer leads, which is your inquiry board, so people who apply, people who book calls, people who cancel, people who no-show, essentially your sales board. And then one board to manage your clients. What we want to do is we would then select your inquiry board, the board that you use to manage your sales process. We would move them into the one stage, and then we would set the status as once the system can track that they've been won. We would add the opportunity name as their full name, and we would leave the source here because that source will have already come in when that lead comes into the system. So we just want it to track that that's a one deal, and we can allow them to move between stages. we save that. You can see that this is an example, so we've not got the appropriate boards. When you have them, that will then allow you to save it. What you would then want to do is you'd want to add another step, which is create or update the opportunity again. And here you would then select your client board. Select the board, select the first stage on that client board, and then again you would add their opportunity name here, the full name. What this then means is you can allow them to move between different stages. This then means that they're then going to appear on your client board. So then if you think about it, our goal as a business is to move someone from the lead board onto the inquiry board, then the inquiry board onto the client board, and that's then our customer journey, moving them between the different boards. We'd save that once we've selected the appropriate stages. But what this now means is we can then ultimately add the appropriate emails that send out to them to onboard them. We can then also add the appropriate SMS or WhatsApp messages to then go out to them to then onboard them again. But what we can also do is we can then trigger to send documents and contracts out to the specific person that has signed up. And the way that we do that is we want to, one, choose a user, which would be yourself, but two, we want to choose the specific template. And the way that we do that is if we backtrack, inside payments, along the top you've got documents and contracts, and you can choose templates. In templates, you can choose new and you can upload a PDF. You then have your legal terms and conditions that you upload into here. And when you upload into here, you can then add the specific fields, which are essentially fillable fields that then the contact gets sent. And when they get sent them, they have to click them, input their data, such as their name, their email, and then their electronic signature. And what that then means is you'll then see here contacts that you're waiting for a signature back from, contacts who have completed it, and then ultimately you can view their signed contracts. That then means that you can always stay on top of the clients who are signing data and not, and ensure that essentially all of the terms and conditions are sorted before you actually start delivering the service. But if we go into settings, we can then change the types of emails that trigger when contracts go out to people. So you can see here, customer notifications, we can choose, do they get notified when the contract's signed, received and signed. So when they receive it, they need one. So you can choose to preview the template and you can edit the template. And you can choose if you want them to get an email when the contract is signed. You can turn that on and off. What you'll notice here though, is here will show all of your different templates. And if you want to create new templates to add into here and then save, you would just go to emails and socials, emails, and then templates. And in templates, you can then create your new template. You then create your template, just like here, you see we've got an email template that we can go into, we can rearrange this, we can add our different images, we can add our different text and save it. And then that will appear in the drop down when we're editing the contracts like I just showed you. So inside templates, new, and then we choose blank template, or you can choose from the pre-built ones inside GoHighLevel. Just a thing to realize there, the more graphics, the more links, the more colors and things that you have on your email templates, they might look better, but the delivery will be worse on them. So what I would suggest is just having your logo at the top and then keeping the rest as text. What we can then also do though is inside GoHighLevel, we have our opportunity boards. Inside our opportunity boards, we ultimately have different pipelines that we can build. Now on these pipelines, when we're creating pipelines, we can create a pipeline and we can have our different stages. We can then trigger when a contact moves to a certain stage, it then triggers a Zapier automation to then automate off to a third-party software. So for example, if part of your onboarding process is when someone pays you, you then add them to a coaching software to deliver your coaching within, well, we can automate giving them access to that. And here's how we do that. So inside Zapier, we can create workflows, which are essentially called Zaps. They're a series of steps, just like in GoHighLevel, where we created our automations and our workflows. It's the same thing in Zapier. What we can then do though is we can add a trigger that's called lead connector, and we can select this and we can then choose when someone's moved to a pipeline stage. And that will then show us all of these different pipeline stages that we could then choose. So when someone lands on the contacted section, for example, that then triggers this automation in Zapier, which we will then click select and select our GoHighLevel account. It's then connected and we'll have the option to choose which pipeline here, and then which stage on the pipeline that will then trigger this automation. Off the back of that, we can then choose any other application inside Zapier, be that Trainerize, be that any other software that you might use to deliver your service. Maybe you create a Google Drive folder for them there, and we can select that and then choose the appropriate steps within that to then happen after they move into the appropriate stage. So that then means, from a workflow perspective, the minute that someone pays, it appears in your Stripe account. They can get sent all of the appropriate contracts and emails, they get their tagging updated, they get moved on the appropriate boards, and they even get added to the appropriate third-party software. And what we can also do is we can add coupon codes. So inside GoHighLevel, if we go to payments and we go to coupons, we can create coupon codes. So it means that you can have a payment link, you can run an offer, they can use a coupon code, and still when that money processes, it appears in Stripe, but all of those steps are automated. And you can create your coupon code with the name, with the actual code, the type, if it's a fixed amount off or a percentage off, and obviously the start date. And you can even then set it so each coupon code can only be redeemed a certain number of times. It can only be used on certain products. It can only be used once per customer. And if it's on a recurring product that recurs, it can then either take that off the first payment or all payments too. And then that means as soon as someone pays you, all of the steps run automatically, and you literally no longer need to onboard any of your clients yourself.